morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Here are the latest headlines from across the continent of Africa, and we start with those newspapers from Kenya. The Daily Nation: fallout in Ruto camp as U.S. wades into row, and just beside that we do have some subtitles. Kenyatta farm raid, reports of split in government over brazen invasion on former president's property, protest on Azimio to go ahead with demonstrations even after meeting U.S. Senator Chris Coons and church leaders. Tough edict. Interior CS Kindiki puts violent protesters on notice even as he vows to protect Kenyans and businesses, and on and off and on again after calling off demos in Kisumu City. Governor Nyong'o forced to make a quick U-turn. There you go, and the full report you'll find inside the Daily Nation on page 4, 5, 6 and 8. How banks made billions as other sectors struggled. Kenyan banks earned record profits like last year, in sharp contrast to firms in other sectors that posted profit slumps of or losses. The profits rally was driven by a sharp jump in earnings from interest on loans and government securities, and a similar rapid growth in income from transaction fees and foreign exchange trading. The full story is on page 10. You can now sell land without your child's consent. A court in Kisii has made a landmark ruling, granting parents the freedom to sell their land without consulting with their children. The president's setting judgment is likely to influence decisions on many land disputes, pitting parents against their children. You'll find that on page 12. And reprieve for ECDA teachers as court holds pay cut order. The Employment and Labor Relations Court has suspended the implementation of a circular by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission that seeks to slash the pay of teachers in early childhood development and education ECD centers. So these teachers don't even earn much, and yet there were plans to slash their salaries. Well, we have these senior government officials' salaries being added who earn in tunes of hundreds of thousands up to even $1 million plus. We have that increase, but for those who really earn on the lowest cadre, we okay. But so it's a good thing that the court has halted that. Poll: the cost of living, biggest worry for majority of Kenyans. That is also on the front page there. Very well. Let's look at the Star newspaper. Why Kindiki was silent over demos. Interior CS told President Ruto he was uncomfortable about certain responses to protest. That story is on page 4-5. Ruto: demos not about cost of living but about some election results. That you'll find on page 6, and then a pictorial down there. Raila meets Nubian Christians, says demo is on. CS Kindiki: 2,000 invaded and stole from Uhuru farm. Interior CS Kithure Kindiki broke his silence over Northland's attack, saying 2,000 people stormed the property. He asked the police to expedite investigations, warning no more violent demos will be allowed. And then Joey Maribe have a case to answer in Monica murder. That you'll find on page 9 on the Star newspaper. The Standard newspaper: the buck stops here. The dust is yet to settle on the chaotic events of Monday, and another round of demos is on today. The 6 men below bear the greatest responsibility of defining the course of events and maintaining the nation's stability. For millions looking up to them, will they step up to the plate? And we see the photo of President William Ruto, who has just jetted in the country after his official visit in Germany and also Belgium. And the DP Rigathi Gachagua, IG, that is Inspector General of Police Japheth Kome, DPP Nudin Haji. We have the Interior CS Kithure Kindiki, and of course opposition leader Raila Odinga. Now, salary relief for 45,000 nursery school teachers. That story is on page 5. And children keep off parents' land deals. That is on page 4. Costly loans beckon on. CBK rate up, and then Harambee Stars promise. Coach promise. You'll find that also. Insight there, and Monica Mada, Maribe, Joey have a case to answer. Very well, let's look at some other newspapers from across the continent. And we start with this Punch. This is from Nigeria. Arrest interim government plotters. APC PDP tells DSS. Saboteurs planning court orders a protest to stop Tinubu inauguration. That's according to the agency. An interim government alien to constitution campaigners, pseudo-democrats say APC, PDP. And 26 children, 125 adults, Libyan returnees land in Lagos. And then Ramadan, election riggers, Yahoo boys fasting in vain, says clerics. What is Yahoo boys? Anybody from Nigeria, please enlighten me. Burglars jailed 7 years for robbing Patience, Jonathan. And then, the Daily Trust, also from Nigeria. Governors-elect pledge better deals, receive certificates of return. The Nation, also from Nigeria. DSS warns interim government plotters of dire consequences. Tinubu, my mandate, best birthday gift from Nigeria. Okay, so he celebrated his birthday, and he's saying, having been elected and, given the mandate by Nigerians to lead them as their president, could have been, the best birthday gift for him. Well, okay, that's all right. The Daily News from Zimbabwe. D-Day for losing ZANU-PF big fish as party's Politburo meets today to confirm primaries. Government to speak on gold mafia. That is the investigative piece that was done by Al Jazeera, that was released a few days ago, that has really caused quite a storm. So the government is saying it will speak on this investigation and perhaps give its position on this matter. News day still from Zimbabwe. Al Jazeera expose, government gags media. See, when you do things like that, then now people become very suspicious, and why would the government gag the media in Zimbabwe not to speak on these matters? That really raises a lot of questions. Zimbabwe ready for credible free polls. That is according to President Emmerson Mnangagwa there. The Herald, also from Zimbabwe, uphold gospel of better life, President. That's what he said. Daily News, this is from Tanzania. Samia puts crooks on notice. Very well. The Citizen as well from Tanzania. Samia moves to curb funds loss. And then just another subtitle there. Tanzania drops in dollar millionaires ranking and why Foreign Affairs Review Committee is necessary. And other stories up in there on the Citizen. The Daily Monitor from Uganda. Districts lose billions in massive pay scam. It is corruption in Uganda. It's like every now and then you look at the papers from Uganda, it's just corruption after corruption after corruption. Now it's another corruption scandal. And then Kenya, Uganda signed trade deal. Iron Sheets protesters face charges. Also another scandal that involves some iron sheets that are supposed to be given, I guess, to some needy people, and some government officials decided to keep them for themselves or give them to their close people who are close to them, their relatives, friends, or things like that. So that is also another scandal that has continued there in Uganda. The New Times, this one from Rwanda, will school feeding deter Rwanda's green ambitions? All right, and then Kagame Digestive Cancer Institute boards discuss partnership. Experts call for increased use of modern business models in agriculture. Featured BK to invest 50 billion Rwandan francs, 150 billion Rwandan francs in agribusiness financing. Okay, I guess that is some good news there. So President Kagame has been busy working there, while the rest of us have been busy politicking on this other side of town, or the continent rather. The Daily Telegraph from the UK. Households to face net zero penalty for gas use. Rotten meat may have been sent to supermarket for years. I see. We've dealt with that, I think, a couple of years ago. I see now it's a problem also in the UK. The Guardian, government defies experts with huge gamble on carbon capture. And then the oldest thing in my wardrobe, Claudia Schiffer. All right, I think that is on entertainment. And then ministers urged to act on religious oppression. And UN calls on Britain to investigate slavery links. Abramovich secretary secretly bankrolled Dutch club. All right, that's another story there. I guess it's a scandal also. And News paper, MPs demand inquiry after Sunak gave budget boost to farm linked with his wife. Another scandal, I guess. Corruption. Prime Minister refused to fund new centers for asylum seekers. Okay, the Daily Mirror from the UK as well. Paul O'Grady, he died. A comedian, career animal lover, and a campaigner, straight talking, warm hearted, and smiling till the end. I have a book by him on my mother's, I think in my mother's knees or something like that. I have it, I've read it. He's also a good writer there. He passed on yesterday, Paul O'Grady, and I think he used to host another show on Nat Geo. I must have watched it some times back. So let him rest in peace, I guess. Now, Metro from the UK as well. Thanks for all the joy, Paul. Still on the same. And then the Sun, Tara, Lily, Tara, Paul, still on the same. Paul O'Grady's death. That is what has made headlines there from some of the papers from Africa, and of course some few from the UK. So you are now up to date. Let me see if I can find us a bit of an update on what is happening in the sports world, and see how our Kenyan local newspapers, what they've been able to capture as far as sports across the world is concerned. And give us time, Coach Fairat wants irate Kenyan fans to be patient with Harambee Stars. Remember, they were playing Iran 2 days ago, and they were beaten 2-1. Kenya fell 2-1 to Iran in friendly duel on Tuesday. And I think Kenyans, being Kenyans, we have opinions and we're never afraid to speak our minds, and we do that very well on social media and especially on Twitter. So I think they've been attacking and airing these opinions. And the coach there is saying, just give us time. Give us time. We might improve and do better. Well, I hope so. McKinstry over the moon as Gor open 6-point gap. And then let's see, records keep falling. Can on fire Haaland become Europe's most prolific player? The records keep tumbling for Erling Haaland in what has been an incredible debut season in English football. The Manchester City striker has scored 28 goals in 27 league outings so far for this season, while hitting 42 goals in all competitions, and is firmly on course to break both records for the Premier League player. What other scoring records is he closing in on? And just how close is he to becoming the most prolific forward in a season in Europe? Well, the details of that story is on page 31 of the Star newspaper. Tuchel is in best mood as he supervises small training group in Bayern. I think Bayern Munich. In German, you say Bayern München. Munich, I think, is English. Sun accepts responsibility for Conte's departure. Tottenham South Korean striker Son Heung-min admits he was sad to see Antonio Conte leave the club and put his hand up to accept some responsibility for the Italian departure. And then let's see what else we have. Rugby giants handed tough draws in Western Region Term 1 games. Those are school rugby sports for the Kenyan schools here. And then let me see what else we have in sports from other newspapers. The Standard, the back page, relax. In 1 year, Kenya will be up there. That is what Harambee Stars coach Fairat said after that loss to Iran on Tuesday. Gor Mahia hit Vihiga United to extend lead. All right, I've also told you about that. Namibia beat Cameroon to close in on AFCON slot. Namibia are on the verge of sealing a place at the 2023 African Cup of Nations in Cote d'Ivoire after beating giants Cameroon 2-1 on Tuesday. The Brave Warriors topped the 5-time champions in their Group C qualifier at the Dobsonville Stadium in Johannesburg, South Africa. The victory sent Namibia to the top of the group with the 5 points, one more than second-placed Indomitable Lions in the 3-team group. Burundi, the other team in the group, have played 2 matches and have 1 point, giving Namibia a good chance of qualifying for Africa's flagship football competition. Kenya was initially set to also play in this group before the FIFA ban. After the lifting of the ban, it was too late for Harambee Stars to join the other teams in the qualifiers. Remember, the Harambee Stars team was banned because of what FIFA considered government meddling in Kenya's football here. So that was a penalty that now our national team has to pay for that. So there you go. Now Messi passes 100 goals for Argentina. Argentina captain Lionel Messi passed 100 international goals as he scored his 7th international hat-trick in a friendly win at home to Curacao. I'm sure that is not how they pronounce that. I can bet on that. But hey, I don't speak Spanish, so bear with me. The 35-year-old forward reached the landmark when he opened the scoring on 20 minutes in Santiago del Estero in the 7-0 win. He added 2 more before the break to complete a quick-fire treble. So Scotland also shocked Spain in Euro qualifying match. Sensational Scotland took a seismic leap in their bid to reach consecutive European championships by stunning Spain 2-0 in a heroic triumph. So it's just a lot of it to do with football or soccer. But athletes turn to AIU for help in fighting doping. Head of AIU, Brett Clouthier, is in the country to listen to athletes and sports stakeholders. He's in Kenya. More than 30 Kenyan athletes have been sanctioned in the last year. So, all right. And also I see some news on tennis. Alcaraz storms into Miami quarters. And, Curry leads Warriors to comeback win over Pelicans. That is on NBA. If you're interested, Steph scored 8 3-pointers against the New Orleans Pelicans. Celtics face the Bucks tomorrow while Wizards battle to make the top. Okay, I think I've done a very good job in giving you a roundup of all the sports that you need to know about here across the world. So I suppose you are now up to date. Thank you so much. I might not have our usual weather update this morning for some reason. I'm unable to bring us the latest, but I think we'll just Luanda, it's going to be mostly cloudy, highs of 31 degrees, lows of 24. In Khartoum, highs of 37 degrees and lows of 21. It's going to be a clear day there in Khartoum, and in Addis Ababa, it's going to be partly cloudy with highs of 23 degrees Celsius and lows of 12 degrees Celsius. And in Johannesburg, it's going to be partly cloudy with highs of 23 degrees Celsius and lows of 13 degrees Celsius. So that is the latest weather forecast from around a few cities across Africa. Okay, I see some also. Production has done a wonderful job. So you can look at what your city looks like today and enjoy whatever kind of weather that you'll be having today. So thank you so much. All right, now let's get into the news, and I'll start with a story that maybe let me keep it for later, that story. And let's start from Burkina Faso, where a group of civil society organizations in Burkina Faso have expressed concern over cases of abduction and forced recruitment of citizens as army auxiliaries in the fight against jihadism, and denounced the recurrent and systematic denial of freedom of opinion. The Burkinabe Movement for Human and People's Rights, MBDHP, learned with dismay of the kidnapping and forced enlistment of Bukari Ouedraogo, president of the Appel Dikaya movement, as a volunteer for the defense of the homeland, civilian auxiliaries to the army, which occurred on the 22nd of March, the organization wrote in a statement sent to AFP on Wednesday. Another organization, the Collective Against Impunity and Stigmatization of Communities, confirmed the abduction and recruitment in a separate statement. According to the MBDHP, Ouedraogo went last Wednesday to the residence of the governor of the Center North to meet the transitional president Ibrahim Traoré, who was visiting Kaya, the capital of the region, the MBDHB explained, citing witnesses for the CISC. The arrest of Bukari Ouedraogo is linked to a press conference a few days earlier, where he had questioned President Traoré, who came to power in a push at the end of September, about the security situation in the region. The two organizations denounced an arbitrary arrest and called for the immediate release of Mr. Ouedraogo, while deploring the current trend of recurrent and systematic denial of citizens' freedom of opinion and expression. On Saturday, during a meeting with citizens of Kaya, Captain Ibrahim Traore admitted having ordered the enlistment of a citizen without naming him, accusing him of having divulged information that led to an attack on a nerve center near the town that left at least 14 dead, including 4 soldiers. According to other civil society organizations, on Saturday, 2 of their representatives were also arrested and registered as VDPs after criticizing the management of the transition. At a press conference since 2015, Burkina has been caught in a spiral of violence perpetrated by jihadist groups linked to the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda, which has left a total of 10,000 civilians and soldiers dead, according to NGOs, and some 2 million displaced. Okay. All right, so we talk about Burkina Faso a lot. And since the ousting of President, what was his name? Christian Kabore, I believe. That was his name. Christian Roch Kabore. He was ousted, and the reason why the army ousted him, the coup took place, is because he was being accused of not being able to handle the situation, the security situation in Burkina Faso, and so that saw an increase in a lot of jihadist activities and extremism activities that is very rampant in the Sahel region. So this is just not a Burkina Faso problem, because certain countries have refused to really. A country like Nigeria could not really bring to book quickly or get a hold of the situation as far as Boko Haram is concerned, and so this helped in the growth of these extremism groups, and others are now linked to Al-Qaeda, others are linked to the Islamic State. So it is a security nightmare in the Sahel region, and Burkina Faso is one of those countries that has really, really suffered through these extremist and jihadist activities in the Sahel region and indeed across Africa. And so that became too much, and there were protests over it. And so after some protesting, the army decided that President Christian Kabore, you're not doing enough to arrest the issue or to address the issue. So what we are going to do now, we are going to put you aside, and then we'll take over. And since we are the army, we might be at a better space to address the issue of security in Burkina Faso. Lo and behold, how long has it been now since they removed Christian Kabore? I think they removed him in 2021. So nothing has really changed there. Instead, things have become really, really tough. And anybody that tries to question the military and anybody that tries to, just question them or raise concerns, you're not allowed to do that. So now what they have been doing, and what these civil societies are now raising an alarm about, is they're forcing people to join what is now called the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland. How do you have volunteers for the defense of homeland? Well, a whole army is in charge of the country. A whole army which have the intelligence and collects the intelligence. A whole army which is trained to protect the homeland. That is the work of the army. That is the work of the army, to protect the country, the sovereignty of the country. That is the work of the army. And so it was assumed, or perhaps I hoped, that after they removed Christian Kabore, now some of these things they would be addressing differently, since now they are the army. They're the ones who understands these things. A president is a civilian unless he worked in the army, and we saw even in Nigeria, even after having had a president who was a retired general, Muhammadu Buhari, still he didn't do much in terms of addressing the issue of security. So I don't know what they trained in the army, these army schools, some of them across Africa. I don't know what they train, how they train, or what the training entails there, because there have been a few cases where you've seen former army generals being in power and really not being able to address the issue of security. So you wonder, okay, so what were you doing? At least that training in the army and that experience you have, you should bring it here and use it as a head of state and try to, do things differently as you would expect from just a normal civilian who is just has just been elected to these positions and might not be advantaged in terms of understanding intelligence and how security works and things like that. But that has been quite something there. So it is no different with Burkina Faso. The army is in control of the country, and things have deteriorated. They've gone from bad to worse, and they continue getting worse every single day. And now with the Russian mercenaries in the country, which, by the way, the army junta has for several times refuted these claims, that they don't have the Russian mercenaries, while there are credible reports that they are there. They have been seen in several areas. Matter of fact, leading Russian companies now are being given mining rights in Russia, and I guess those mercenaries, not in Russia, in Burkina Faso, those mercenaries are also there in the name of offering or helping with the security. But of course, I'm sure they're there to try to protect the interests of these Russian oligarchs or individuals who have been accorded the rights for these mining sites in Burkina Faso. So this in return has made things worse. And from what we've been seeing in Central African Republic, and the proxy war that now we see is there between Russia and France, or Russia and the Western allies, specifically France. I think that is also what is at play here in Burkina Faso. And I wouldn't be surprised that even with the increase of this insecurity, these Western powers, one of them or both of them or some of them, they have everything to do with it, so that they're able to repulse the other party, not to go to where their interests are. That is what is happening. And this is, don't be surprised, we've heard that. I mean, in Somalia, there is an leaked audio that from the Qatari government, leadership, ambassador to Somalia, where they were saying they organized a terror attack, a suicide bomber, to target a specific area where the other Gulf country was, and they've not been getting along very well. So there were allegations there that happened. Even these suicide bombings you see happening in Somalia, some of them are not really Al-Shabaab motivated, and in these instances they could become mercenaries for hire. So they're told, since you'll go to heaven, or whatever it is that they fight for, these jihadist wars. So we might use you to attack the other place, or you give an amount of money and you decide, I'll just die for you. And then they go and they blow off to scare the other parties not to access or not to have interest in areas they feel they have a huge interest upon because of whatever is there in terms of they choose to, they stand to gain. So I wouldn't be surprised since the severing of ties with France in Burkina Faso, in Mali. Look at the trend. The attacks have continued. They have intensified. And I think France has been keen on really highlighting and I've been watching, France has been keen on highlighting what their absence now means to Burkina Faso, the gap that they have left, and how it is working against Burkina Faso and against Mali. And that's why Burkina Faso closed down the France 24. Initially it was the TV, and now it is the radio, now it is the TV. They closed down because this media house, had an interview with a jihadist, with an Al-Qaeda affiliate, who are running operations in Burkina Faso. And this army junta said, wait on, how is it that you're able to get in touch with these people and have interviews with them, and they're causing us mayhem here? Well, that is not a new thing. We've seen journalists having access. We've seen interviews by the BBC, another interview that really upset the Nigerian government, when the BBC did an investigative piece, which I really thought was well done last year, and they had access to these bandits and these groups of individuals and gangs who were causing a lot of insecurity in Nigeria, and they went into the dungeons with them, into the ditches and interiors, and they spoke to these people, and they gave them their side as to why they attack and what is happening and what is the motivation behind this. So the fact that French TV was able to sit down with this extremist, it's not a wonder. That is what investigative journalism involves. So you're able to get access to these people. So what usually happens under the journalism laws, well, you have to protect your source. You have to protect your source, and that's why maybe, I don't know if Burkina Faso authorities wanted the television to give them the address and the names of these people and where this interview was done. You know, France 24 is not mandated to do that. We are not allowed to do that. You protect the source. That is number one, especially when it comes to investigative journalism. You have to protect the source so that you build your trust. So next time, if you're looking to go do another story, then you know, you're able to have that code. So it is allowed. It is allowed in journalism, unless on very special occasions. I think in very distinct cases, but usually you're not allowed, no matter what, to expose your sources. Yeah, you're not allowed to do that unless otherwise in very rare occasions that now you must, if it's a matter of national security, if it's a matter of, and in case of anything, Burkina Faso, these people are in your country. You are the army who are in charge. You have the intelligence. I want to believe you can get where these people are. You can go. And just going back to the reference I've made about the Nigerian investigative piece that the BBC done, and the Nigerian government was very upset. Well, the BBC was just laying bare the things that even the authorities know. You realize that there is particular people whose work is to work as mediators between the people who are the victims of the people who have been kidnapped and these kidnappers. And they're the ones who are given the money, take back. They're the ones who are a link. And these people, this is what they do for a living. So why haven't the government of Nigeria used these people and their link and the understanding about the contacts and where these people are to try to bring these culprits to book? So this is a very well coordinated thing that you can assume, or you can come to a conclusion that the government could could know about it, and it's just choosing not to act as it should. So you can't get mad, Burkina Faso, that France 24, even with all the problems that you're having with France, that they refuse to give you this information. So now criticizing you how you're handling that your security, and now I think what is very worrying is the military junta's move to force people to volunteer for the defense of the homeland, to protect, to go fight these jihadist activities. How can the military recruit civilians to go fight? Well, the military has been trained specifically for the defense of what they call homeland. That is your job, military junta. That is why you that is why you are in the army. That is why you are in the army. And since you're in power, I think you have the responsibility. So now, the two organizations denounced the arbitrary arrest. Now, the two NGOs that spoke, and there's a person who spoke about this, and he was belonging to one organization, one NGO, and he was criticizing the state of insecurity in Burkina Faso. And so, because the military junta do not want to be criticized, so what they did, they took this guy and they forced him to volunteer for the defense of the homeland. They say, okay, you think you can do a good job? Here's a gun, and here is the military, uniform. So here's the position you'll take. In case you can't cock it, just let us know. This is ridiculous. I hope that is not what happened. I know I'm trying to be dramatic about it, but basically that is what they're doing. They get the civilians who are not trained to go to fight in combat, and they're forcing them to go fight in the defense of their homeland, while the military is busy pretending they're leading a country. And that is, they can't do that. They're supposed to be on the lines fighting the jihadists, because they removed President Christian Kabore for his lack of ability to bring to to take care of the country's security. All right. So as the commander-in-chief, they removed him. So now these commanders are in power. You remove your commander-in-chief. Now you have a new commander-in-chief in the name of Traore, who is from the military, who understands intelligence, I want to assume, and who knows how this thing should be done, and who understands, how the protection of the homeland should be happening. But he's out here recruiting civilians. So I think what he's telling us is that the military of Burkina Faso is unable to to defend the homeland, as they call it, or to take care of the security situation in Burkina Faso. And if that is the case, and Christian Kabore, General, and you need help, then that is where you need to think about it and maybe step aside and have a civilian operation and then go back to ECOWAS, because ECOWAS now has a force they formed last year that is meant to help the member states, especially when it comes to cases of these attacks. They do have the ECOWAS standby force. They renewed the mandate last year. I think they did that. I think after the many coups that happened in West Africa, they wanted to be they wanted to be to take charge and to address the issues of the insecurity and the issues of coups and instability in West Africa. So if you just stepped aside and allowed for what is supposed to happen, and then your membership, you're back again in ECOWAS, you're back again in African Union, these institutions perhaps could help your country. But since you're very able and you feel like you have to stay there, then you can't be complaining, and you cannot get mad when people are demanding for you to offer the security, because you are supposed to offer that. You are the president of Burkina Faso, so stop enlisting civilians to the army by force. I don't think it's fair, and that is very unnecessary, and stop this arbitrary arrest. Mr. Army Junta. I don't think it's okay. All right, so let's move on to Senegal, another place that keeps brewing with tension and demonstrations. We're having one in Kenya today, I think. I don't know. Now, clashes broke out on Wednesday at the University of Dakar between police officers and students attempting to take part in a demonstration banned by the authorities on the eve of the trial of opponent Ousmane Sonko. Deployed en masse around the university, the police sent tear gas in the direction of students locked inside the campus. The students retaliated with stones but were prevented from leaving. An AFP journalist who was present with several colleagues before the incident began was punched in the back at the head by a police officer. Now, when you're having these police officers on the comments and the government, being part of the people who are committing these crimes, you wonder, okay, which none of them were doing at the time the journalist present reported. So the students are not even had not even started rioting, and the journalist was just there doing their good job, for the homeland, I guess, there in Senegal, and the police decided to just punch him. Now, the AFP journalist was then apprehended and forcibly taken away in a police van, despite attempts by his colleagues to intercede on his behalf, they said. The police officer threw a tear gas canister at their feet to keep them at bay. Inside the van, the AFP reporter was punched several times in the upper body and behind the head by a police officer. He later said he was released moments later. Now, this brutality cast doubt on the repeated assurances of the Senegalese authorities on the free exercise of the profession and raises serious questions and the safety of journalists in the pre-election period, he added. The opposition to President Macky Sall has announced marches and demonstrations in Dakar throughout the country on Wednesday and Thursday and Monday. Oh, theirs is 3 times. Ours here is just 2 times. Okay. Now, opposition leader Ousmane Sonko is due to appear in court in Dakar on Thursday on charges of defaming a minister. Authorities have banned many of the planned rallies on Wednesday and Thursday, but the main opposition coalition has said it intends to defy the ban as they prepare to make a statement on Wednesday on a major thoroughfare in the capital. Leaders of the Yewi Askanwi coalition, YAW, with a word there in French that I really can't read, were dispersed with tear gas by the gendarmerie. According to footage seen by AFP, the tensions have considerably slowed down activities in the capital. School and universities' vacations have been brought forward. Public transport suspended its line on Wednesday. Banks announced close early. Mr. Sonko and his supporters accused the government of using the justice system to prevent him from running for president in February 2024. The presidential party accuses Mr. Sonko of wanting to paralyze the country and of using the streets to escape justice. Okay, I'm laughing because the allegations are different, but the scenarios, they are pretty much similar to, I don't know. Anyway, but now I took my time a few days ago and I just gave us a bit of a background in this politics in Senegal. And whatever is happening to this opposition leader now, Ousmane Sonko, all this was done to President Macky Sall by his predecessor Abdoulaye Wade. I told us about that a few days ago. So this is just a repeat. So everything that was done to him, he's doing it now to the opposition leader. And the problem with that is that people love this person so much. So every time a government, and they feel that the government is treating him unfairly, and some of these trumped up charges, one time he was being accused of raping, I don't know who, and now he's being taken to court because, I don't know, he defamed. I mean, there are laws. I think there are laws around defamation. The laws are very clear, even for the media or anybody. If you defame somebody, then a court process goes ahead, and usually you're fined. It never attracts a life sentence. You're fined a certain amount of money, if at all there are grounds that whatever you said, and this defamation has to meet, I think, at least 3 grounds for it to be considered defamation. It has to be proved that whatever you said is false, and whatever you said, you had a malicious intent, and whatever you said has caused damage to the character of this person. There are grounds for something to meet the threshold of defamation. So you can't just decide, I've said what you don't like, and so I've defamed you. No. There are some thresholds that defamation has to meet. The rules that falls under libel and all that. And so it has to be. And for us, journalists, then if you published that, if the materials that was published or what was said, was meant for to cause harm to this person, there's proof that harm was caused from what was said or what was printed, and then there is proof that whatever was said or whatever was printed was done maliciously, and there's proof that whatever was said or whatever was printed was a lie. There's no truth to that. And I think the 4th one I'm forgetting. But at least those are 3 very important grounds that any case under defamation should be, that is the threshold. All right. So if this is the case and Ousmane Sonko did not, said whatever it is that he said or whatever is being accused about, then that is a very simple thing to do. Once the courts are able to prove this, then what usually happens is you either issue a public apology on the same medium that you used. If, say, a defamation was printed in a newspaper or was put in a website, the same medium that was used to print or to say or to pass out this defamatory information, it is the same media that will be used to issue an apology, if at all the person who was offended, that is what they want. And if they say whatever you said really costed them a lot and was really harmful and maybe costed them their income or whatever, then they can decide they want a monetary reward for that, and so you agree on a settlement. But usually you don't take people to court. But the only time not to court, to jail, but the only time someone can go to jail if, say, they refuse to obey the court orders in line with the judgment made on that defamation. If it has been truly proven that whatever it is meets the defamation threshold and say the court says you have to issue an apology and you refuse to issue an apology, then you can go to jail. Or if the court says you have to, if that person wanted so and such amount of money and you're unable to raise that money or to agree on a sum that you can afford, then that you can go to jail for. But usually if you're able to settle it, then it's not such a huge of a deal. But now, because of how the Senegalese government is handling this case, it is becoming ridiculous, and it is causing a lot of problems for Senegal. It's affecting businesses, and the opposition, their supporters, don't want to hear anything about it. But it is not just about this case. It is the background of this case, because President Macky Sall, who, by the way, I don't know why African Union has not issued a statement, but maybe because he's the chairperson of the African Union right now. Yes, he is. President Macky Sall of Senegal. So maybe that's why African Union has not issued, this report. But that falls under the secretariat that is headed by, Musa Muhammad. So he should have issued a statement over what has been happening in Senegal. But he's been very quiet, because these are protests that have been happening, and a lot of them, a lot of times, because of the force that the police also uses to repulse these protests, it usually ends with a lot of casualties and a lot of damages and brutality and human rights abuses. And from what I've been reading here, it happens 3 times a day, all right? 3 times a day. So you can imagine, and the African Union has not said one thing about this situation in Senegal, but they were quick to talk about what was happening here in Kenya, which I thought was quite something. But they haven't said anything about Senegal and what has been happening in Senegal. But I think the main thing that is really pushing this protest is the idea that President Macky Sall wants to go against the constitution and run for what the opposition feels is an illegal 3rd term. President Macky Sall came out a few days ago and said there's nothing, if he intended to run for a 3rd term, there's nothing in the constitution that stops him, because they had a referendum. The constitution was changed, and the number of the years that the years in a term that the president was supposed to run for, one term used to be 7 years. So after the referendum in 2016, that changed to 5 years. So President Macky Sall feels now, because he's been operating under the older constitution, now that the country has a new constitution, then he can have the mandate to run again. And remember, his predecessor also tried to change the constitution, Abdoulaye Wade, and ran again for a 3rd term illegally under the same reasons, and he was thwarted. He was defeated. Matter of fact, Macky Sall is the one who defeated him, came to power, and history is repeating itself. Unfortunately, not in a good way. I wish history would be repeating itself in a way that we actually learn and become better in how we handle things. So everything that was done to him, everything he fought against Abdoulaye Wade, everything is what he's doing now, and what he's reiterating. Everything he fought against is what he's doing now. So it's quite, this situation in Senegal is quite something else. So unfortunately, the same way he had supporters and people who loved him then is the same way now this opposition leader, Ousmane Sonko, also have a lot of supporters. So all these trumped up charges, because he seems to be a very a formidable challenger for President Macky Sall. And so I think, according to them, Macky Sall is just trying to find ways to get him out of the way. So they're trying to use the courts to disqualify him for, from running the elections that are supposed to be happening next year. And so they're trying to have him not run, and that's why you see all these court cases. So I think when you start using the institutions like the courts, like the security apparatus, like these other institutions in a country, and like we see play out across Africa especially, and you start using this to weaponize them against other people, what you're forgetting is that your time will come, and these laws and everything else that you've set up might work against you when your time comes and you're perhaps seeking for the same, thing. So it's interesting that Macky Sall, everything he fought against, everything that was done to him that was unfair, everything, all the weaponization that he faced by the court, by every sector in Senegal during President Abdoulaye's tenure, when he worked with President Abdoulaye as his prime minister, and then he stepped down and started running against him. And of course, the late President Abdoulaye, no, he's still there. He's not late. He's 90 what years? And by the time he wanted to run, I think he was 85 years. So he was pretty old. At that point, I doubt it was him who wanted to run. Maybe it's his wife was pushing him, or his close allies who was pushing him, and who really wanted to benefit, by him being the president. He's still there. I apologize. Former President Abdoulaye is not dead. He's still there, enjoying his morning porridge and his vitamins that he takes every morning and evening, I'm assuming. At that age, he's blessed to be alive at that age, and he's blessed to see his successor who fought him and the things that he did to him, how he's doing. I think he's sitting down thinking, this is my legacy. This is what I did, and this is what now he's doing. It's terrible. So anyway, that is what is happening, and I think that is what the opposition is fighting. That is what they've been voicing. That is what they've been trying to fight and make their voices heard and known about their positions on that. And President Macky Sall is really not hearing any of that, and so he's been meeting these protests with a lot of force. Now, U.S. President, Vice President, not U.S. President, but Vice President Kamala Harris announced on Wednesday in Ghana a $1 billion initiative to improve women's economic empowerment in Africa as she wrapped up the first leg of her tour of the continent. Harris's office unveiled the program, largely funded by the private sector, in capital Accra. The U.S. Vice President then left Ghana for Tanzania, scheduled to last until April 2nd. Her tour of Ghana, Tanzania and Zambia comes on the heels of December U.S.-African Summit in Washington, D.C., where President Joe Biden called for a broad partnership with Africa as the U.S. seeks to assert its presence on the continent in the face of growing influence from China and Russia. Harris has already announced several aid packages, including $139 million for economic and cultural development in Ghana and $100 million investment in coastal West African countries facing the risk of spillover jihadist violence from the Sahel. The African Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative includes nearly $400 million from the private sector to help bridge the gender digital divide. More than $500 million again from the private sector will also be used to support women's economic empowerment in Africa, the statement said. So when you hear the private sector from America are the ones who are funding this, what you should have in mind is George Soros, etc., etc., etc. They are the private sectors who are, funding these things that they're funding. And, when they come finding these things that they're funding, of course, they normally do it with their own agenda. So on Tuesday, the Vice President called for more investment in innovation in Africa, particularly in the digital economy, good governance, and democracy. Ms. Harris is expected later this week in Zambia, the last stop on her African tour. I think by now she should be in Tanzania. She will be received there. I think she has been received there, and I'm hoping to see what conversations she will be having with President Samia Suluhu, who now slowly is turning out to be my favorite president in this continent for some reason, and that is because of how much she has embarked in building Tanzania, the things that she's doing there. I'm liking, her leadership style, and most importantly, I think her wanting and intentionally wanting to unite Tanzanians. I think that really stands out for me. But it's not her birthday or her anniversary of being a president, so we will not get into those accolades today too much. Let's head on to Ghana still. And the parliament has amended sections of the Criminal Offences Act of 1960, which makes attempting to take one's own life a crime. Following the amendment on Tuesday, attempted suicide will now be considered a mental health issue requiring assistance by law. Ghana's TV3 network reported Ghanaian health experts have been pushing for the law to be changed, saying attempted suicide is a medical condition that needs health support rather than imprisonment. Some survivors of attempted suicide also call for the resources to be spent on prevention. Local media say about 1,500 cases of suicide are reported nationwide every year. Well, first of all, I'm happy to hear about this amendment of the Criminal Offences Act of 1960 in Ghana that used to stipulate that if you attempted suicide and for whatever reason God decided, you'll not die today, but then the government got a hold of you and maybe you're taken to the hospital or whatever happens, and then you are immediately taken to jail because you attempted to take your own life. It was an offense. Now, when you think about it, it is absolutely ridiculous and absolutely inhumane, because by the time someone feel like they've gotten to the end and they feel as though the only option they have is taking on their own lives and just dying, this is not a very light matter that somebody decides, oh well, today is it is a few minutes to 11 a.m. and I'm not feeling very well, so let me just end my life. It is not a decision someone makes lightly like that. This is something that takes a lot, and a lot of it has to do with mental instability and mental health. So when somebody attempts to take their own life, it is a serious thing. And I think it's not just in Ghana. It's not just in Ghana. I think these laws are there across the continent of Africa and other countries. And that says if you're tempted to take your life, but you survive for whatever reason, now you're taken to jail, which I think what is that? So I applaud this changing of this Criminal Offences Act in the Ghanaian constitution, but I'm just wondering why it took so long. And I suspect maybe it's the visit of Kamala Harris, or it is the US that pointed out this to them, which I think is a good thing for them to have noted that this kind of article was in the constitution and for them to work on it. I don't think it's the right way to handle mental health, and I applaud Ghana. So what I'm hoping is that perhaps they'll have institutions where maybe we should encourage more, because it's not an Africa thing to do, for people to start, seeing counselors or therapists and make these services available and normalize the use of these services. If you're feeling a certain way and you're feeling some certain, instability in your heart or in your head, we should start creating awareness about certain things and perhaps even have free services for these very important services, and say, if this is how you're feeling, this is the number you can call, and this is the person you can speak to, and this is where you can go, so that you can have somebody to talk to you and listen to you. Sometimes they just need somebody to talk to and listen to them without judgment and without, made to feel a certain way. So I think this is something that we don't take very seriously in the African culture and the African setting. I think it's about time we started treating mental illness with the seriousness it deserves. And we need to create awareness about the importance of looking for help and seeking for help, and also creating awareness about centers and people and areas that people can go and say these places exist. Because in Kenya here, the institution that is well known for mental health, the Mathare hospital, like every time you would do something, it became even a joke. It is a running joke in the Kenyan society. If you do something wrong, or maybe you make a mistake, and someone will just say jokingly, you need to go to Mathare, like you're not okay. So it has been demonized, and it has not been looked at as a place where people can go and get help. It's like you have a problem, they need to lock you up in Mathare. And I think we need to start, and it has been a running joke, but I think it's a bad joke, because it lightens the issues around mental health. And so nobody wants to be associated with the Mathare hospital, because I really must be NATO, like a nutcase, for me to be considered to go there. So I think it's about time we started creating awareness and having conversations about mental health so that our people can know that this is just a normal illness, just as any other illness. And if you're feeling a certain way, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with you, but you can go talk with somebody who can help you to navigate the challenges or whatever it is that is going on in your life, so that it doesn't get to a point where you start feeling suicidal or you take your own life. And then after you survive at the attempt, someone decides, now we'll take you to jail. Do we have that? I think our constitution, I don't want to say with certainty, but I look it up. Yeah, I think I look it up because after the building of these wonderful infrastructures we have here, I think one of the things that was said, if there's a footbridge near you, but you decide you don't want to use the footbridge so that you're safe to cross to the other side of the highway, you decide to sort of cross the road and maybe a car hits you, it will be treated as an attempted suicide and you'll go to jail. So I'm trying to think that maybe we even have this law here. Attempted suicide equals jail time. I'm not very sure, but I'll look it up, because if that is the case, then that is ridiculous. Imani, Kimani, Ichungwa, these are things we should be discussing in Parliament, because this a lot of Kenyans would appreciate, together with Emilio Vyembo and the rest of you, our members of Parliament there. I'll look it up. Now I'm curious, but, I'm happy that the Ghanaian Parliament amended this ridiculous Criminal Offences Act. A person with mental illness does not need jail time. They need help. So I'm happy that this is happening, and I'm hoping that other countries will follow suit. All right, I want to thank you so much for your time this morning. I'll see you later here at 3 p.m. where we shall be looking at other news from across the continent of Africa. Charles Munga, good morning to you. James Friday, I thank you so much for your patronage every time, so I appreciate that. So I'll see you much, and the rest of you, I'll see you much later. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.